Container modifications requires structural welding and fabrication. So I wanted to give you some updates on the container and talk to you a little bit about the welding that's involved in or required in building your shipping container conversion or modifications that you might have if you just want to put a door or a window. I've seen people build metal frames out of wood. They actually cut them out and they use a wood frame, and that works actually. You know, some things can work for some people, so I wouldn't say that it doesn't work, but if you're going to do it sufficiently, I would say get you a metal frame, maybe tubing. Tubing is better. Actually, the best tubing to use in this situation would be 2x2. And I would say 2x2 tubing because 2x2 tubing and 2x2 angle, because it helps with the corrugated lip. So you'll be able to have a surface to weld onto from the front and the back if you use 2x2. If you use 1.5 inch, you really won't have enough. So some people ask about the metal that's required. I would say you can do a lot with 2-inch angle, 2-inch tubing, and with your handrails you got various options. You can use straight angle, you can use 1.5 inch, 16 gauge tubing, which that's what we're using. You can use pickets, which we're actually going to use pickets on this. We had one idea and then we decided to go to a different idea, so we'll be doing that. So that's pickets. And you know, you can do a few different things. It all depends on how you want your modifications done. This 20-foot door actually required a little bit more steel and cutouts and hinges that we use to actually pull off the assembly of opening it up and closing it. Still got a few things we got to actually work on, because this is a new construction. So we learned that if you go with too thin of material, when you put your sheet in, it can cause it to stretch, and that can actually be an issue when you get ready to close it. So you have to make sure that you have a solid enough material and that it's welded where it won't bend or flex. So it's a few different things involved, but if a person has a generator, honestly, and a 180 unit, they can be able to fabricate or weld everything they need to do with this unit. There's a lot of structural welding. You can do stick welding if you're trying to, if you're welding on the heavy ends and you're putting kickers and stuff like that in. But 70-18, you know, 3/32 would be great. But I would say just if you stick to flux core, it saves time, it's more economical, and you still can get the same penetration by using a 180 unit. A 140 unit you can do good with your handrails and your layouts on all the top, but when it comes to your structural, once you do your cutouts, you want to use at least 3/16 steel. So when you're using 3/16 steel, sometimes you have to go with a hotter metal, because you know you got 3/16 up on 3/16, or up on a quarter up on a quarter, which is close to half of 5/16. So you want to be able to burn hot enough to get good penetration. But all of the fabrication and everything that's needed when you're doing this can actually be done with a couple of simple tools. You know, having some squares, some angles, some grinders, a big grinder, a medium grinder, and you know, your welder, and some, you know, cutting blades and different things, tape measures. It doesn't take a whole lot, but the knowledge of knowing how to cut and lay out and fit and make sure things are square, that is very, very valuable. So you want to have that type of knowledge when you're working on it. It will save you a lot of time. There is a lot of variables when you're doing these, you know, with the fabrication of it and laying different things out. So I would say, you know, there's a lot of welding if you want to do a structural unit in. You know, that's a lot of welding, especially when you're connected to. But when you're doing one, you know, you got cutouts. Some people ask, do you weld the windows solid? I wouldn't weld the frame solid. You can stitch weld them and then cock them and you'll be good. Some people ask to get theirs welded solid. It's just more money because there's more time involved in doing it. But you really don't have to weld the windows or the door solid. You can actually just stitch everything. So that's a good thing. Even when you're doing your regular tubing in, I would say stitch everything 1 inch, 2 inches, at least 2 inches every foot, you know, or on small things, you know, 1 inch every foot, you know. So it all depends on what the situation is, but you can do a lot of fabrication with a small setup. So don't get discouraged and think you can't build something like this without breaking the bank, because you don't have to break the bank, family. We got a lot of different moving parts with this one, so we're not finished, fam. So we got a lot going on. But the idea with this unit is to build something that you don't see every day here, to help him build some generational wealth in a whole nother business, be able to advertise and network what he got, utilizing the space that you have. Sometimes we can have extra space that we don't utilize and don't use. So, you know, fabricating on these, it's not real hard. Each layout is different. You see we got kicker plates on the bottom of this, so it can't let it roll off. If somebody drops something, it won't roll off and hit someone that's at the bottom. And, you know, that's a safety mechanism since it's in the open. You know, that's 6 inches there. So, you know, there's a few things that can help you lay out your unit, but you can fabricate it using a few small equipment like a 180 unit and like I say, a big grinder, and I would say a medium grinder, some cutting blades, and also your cutting torch. Cutting torch can be handy on certain things if you know you can't use it. So, you know, most of the time I don't use my big one on there. Most of the time I use that one when we're doing repairs. But I got a hand one that I use to do the small ones, and I can be able to take it in to do all the cuts and cut the big clips off. They kind of help tie things down, the tie downs. So sometimes you can use the cutting, the torch, and cut that off. But like I say, there's a lot of things you can do. But I will say with shipping container conversions and modifications, you have no limitations. So, but the welder is very important in this process. The welder fabricator. So you just can't be just a welder, which is good to have someone to come behind you as you lay things out to weld things up, but you literally need a fabricator, someone that can lay things out, understand measurements, understand squares and level, and that really will help you out when you're building your when you're doing your modifications. So like I say, everybody got different ideas when it comes to windows and layouts. You got plenty of things you can do, fam. So have a big imagination when you're building your conversion, and when you're doing your modification, just keep in mind, do all the math on materials. Make sure you look over it a few times. Because the materials that we have, we're still doing some stuff on the other side, and sometimes you have to pay attention to what you have and how many, and make sure you got enough to do everything you need. So we learned a few things from this last one that's going to help us with the next one. So we're getting our HogOn, fam. Y'all be blessed. Enjoy your day. And like I say, when you're doing these modifications, if you're a welder and a fabricator, you can be able to really get some things done when you're doing these units. HogOn.